Hi, it's Sarah from Ruby and the Foxes, and if you've been following my free pattern along with each video tutorial, then thank you for sticking with me. We're very nearly at the end. Here I'm going to show you how to cast off, which will be pretty straightforward after some of the techniques I've been showing you. I hope you find it helpful.
I'm going to show you how to cast off in knit stitch. If you've been working in rib, you could cast off in rib stitch if you wish, but I'm just going to keep this tutorial simple and just work in knit stitch. So, the first thing you need to do is knit 2 stitches. Knit 1 and knit 2. We then need to start working the stitches off the needle, and the way we do that is the stitch behind. I'm going to get hold of it with my needle there and just pulling on this yarn a little bit just to keep the stitch in front secure on your needle. I'm going to pass it over. Can you see what I'm doing there? I'm going to pass it over the stitch that's in front, like so. So that stitch, the first stitch we knitted, is now looped around the second stitch there, and we need to now knit another stitch. So I'm going to knit another stitch there, so we're going to have 2 stitches on our right needle again, and again I'm going to take hold of that stitch at the back to pass over the stitch at the front. So again, in order to secure the stitch at the front so it doesn't slide off while you do this, I'm just going to keep a bit of tension on that yarn. If I get a bit close, hopefully you can see. So I've got that second stitch and I'm going to pass it over the front stitch. There we go. So again, you can see that stitch is now wrapped around the base of the stitch that's left on the needle. I'm just going to do that a few more times so you can see. I'm going to knit a stitch there. I'm going to take hold of the stitch that's at the back, keeping hold of this yarn to hold the stitch at the front in place. I'm going to pull that second stitch over the top of the end of the needle so it sits around the base of the stitch that was in front of it. You can see there you're starting to form a cast off edge. I'll just do that a couple more times so you can see what I'm doing. So another knit stitch. I'm going to grab that second loop. I'm going to pass it over the stitch in front of it, over the edge of the needle, so back to 1 stitch. One more time. I'm going to knit a second stitch. I'm going to grab hold of the stitch at the back, if I can get hold of it, there we go, and I'm going to pass it over that stitch that was in front of it, like there. You can see there you're starting to form your cast off edge. I'm going to continue across the row doing exactly that until I get to the very last stitch, and then I'll show you what to do. When you get to the end, leave the last stitch on your needle, then grab a pair of scissors and snip off the yarn with enough length on it to either weave in or to sew to something else if that's what you're going to do with it. So as we've done with all the other ends, I'm just going to give it a couple of inches like that. I'm then gonna just make that loop a little bit bigger and remove your needle. Then it's just a case of sliding that loose end of yarn through the loop and give it a little tighten. And that's secured that end bit there. And there we have our knitted rainbow square. All that's needed now is a little bit of tidying up. So you've got a couple of options here. The next tutorial is going to be sewing in the ends. So So all these lovely loose ends here. But if you wanted to beforehand, I'm going to do an additional video just showing you how, if you've knitted with acrylic yarn, you can block it, which would just flatten that out a little bit if you've got some curly edges. So if you wanted to, you could do that before you do the sewing in of the ends. So either way, I'll see you at one of the next videos. See you for now.